I was a bit stunned that they weren't better, that simple things like road movement tables. How do you have a 40 or 50 mile traffic jam to begin your war? Well, it's because you haven't planned well, and then your execution was even worse. And I guess I did think there would be certain areas where just the sheer overwhelming size at the beginning, before we really began ramping up, before we started providing now way over 130 howitzers, for example, 155 millimeter heavy, 1 million rounds of 155 millimeter howitzer ammunition. These are staggering numbers. The high mobility artillery rocket system with, again, thousands of those rockets, and then the precision munitions for those that allow a round, on the dinner table that accurate at 80 kilometers from one of these HIMARS systems. And then the Excalibur precision munition for the artillery as well, about half that range. All of this. And then just as I mentioned earlier, the extraordinarily impressive mobilization of the entire country in Ukraine. The biggest of the big ideas beyond, I don't want to ride, I want ammunition, I'm staying right here in Kyiv and my family's staying with me, was, of course, we're all going to mobilize and all men in Ukraine are going to stay. Yes, if women and children have to leave because of the situation, that's understandable, but all able-bodied males are going to pitch in, and they did. And that's the biggest of the big ideas. We are all in this together. This is our war of independence, and we intend to win it. And then the recruiting, training, equipping, organizing, and they're really doing real training. As you know, the UK, it's publicly known, is training units, not just individual soldiers. The US is doing the same. It's publicly known that we helped them war game the offensive in the East at the War Game Center, training center in Germany, the same one at which we war gamed the invasion of Iraq. And there's more of that going on. Now we're training them on the more advanced anti-ballistic missile system, the Patriot, and other air defense systems. So this takes time. The latest contribution by our different nations of infantry fighting vehicles will be very important. It will take some time to get the Ukrainians. The tactical nuclear weapon, as horrific as it may be, and as crossing that threshold as significant as that is, has a tactical effect. Now, it can be depending on the yield, in other words, the explosive power of the particular munition that is selected, the particular nuclear device, that can be very substantial. But it's not going to reverse this stark situation that faces Russia, that they have lost the strategic initiative. And I don't think there's anything they can do to reverse the fact that Ukraine is out mobilizing them. Yes, they have a population that's several times that of Ukraine, but when they did the last partial mobilization, more Russian men left the country than reported to the recruiting station. So this partial mobilization, this conscription, is not going well. They're running out of equipment to provide to these soldiers. They're not training them well at all. They're basically throwing them into combat. And predictably, they are cannon fodder when it comes to the skill that is required for this. That doesn't mean, again, that those numbers don't matter. Cannon fodder can hold you up, especially in urban settings where if they get dug in, it's very difficult to get them out. But that doesn't give you confidence that they can remedy the situation that has been so troubling for them, which is the inability to generate combined arms effects. And so the way they achieved additional ground after these early failures, noting that they did seize ground down in the south and they did eventually take Mariupol, key port city on the Sea of Azov and so forth. But what eventually they've done is they just run into the Ukrainians, they stop, and then they just hammer with artillery, mortars, other forms of indirect fire, occasionally some close air support, although that has been abysmal as well. They've never achieved air superiority, much less the kind of air supremacy that we have enjoyed really for a number of decades.